This is the plaintiff, Jessica Toothman. She says she and the defendants got into a fender-bender. The accident was their fault, and she wants the $3,251.17 in damages, which they refuse to pay. That's why she's suing them. These are the defendants, T.K. Olivari and Lindy Mills. Lindy says the plaintiff admitted 100% fault at the time of the wreck. Her car was already banged up from a prior accident, and the plaintiff owes them money for the damages she was the cause of. They're accused of banging up a Subaru. The defendants have filed a countersuit for $3,594.88 for the damage to their vehicle.
All parties, please raise your right hands. People's Court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Marilyn Milian is now presiding.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome.
Ms. Toothman, you and Mr. Olivari, who was driving Ms. Mills' car, I guess, got into an accident. What time of the night was it?
About 10:30 at night.
And what happened?
So I was heading home. I was about 2 blocks away from my house when I was going to make a left-hand turn and collided with the defendant who pulled up from a stop sign.
Okay, so you provided this helpful sketch into evidence. Who would be in red and who would be in green?
I'm in green and they are in red.
Okay, so according to you, he's at a stop sign. And then what happens? He runs the stop sign? What is it you're saying?
So he was going to make, from what I've understood, he was going to make a left-hand turn off of the street. I was going to make a left-hand turn on 2. And if you look at the other evidence of the pictures, you'll see that they pushed the stop sign back on that street for the reason that this situation does not happen, so that there isn't a collision because of the angle of the street.
So according to you, the accident is his fault?
Yes.
Now, here is a picture of your car. And where was the damage?
So if you look at in that picture, so what happened is there's a bull bar in the front, and if you see, it's only on the driver's side mostly that it got pushed in when I collided with his car.
Right.
And what ended up happening
it's mostly on the driver's side, and I'm sure you're saying that that's because he pulled out, and I'm sure I'm going to hear from him. Mr. Olivari, whose fault was the accident? What happened?
So when I was at the stop sign, it's a blind turn, so you actually do have to pull up in front of the stop sign to be able to see where the cars are coming from. And so when I pulled up there, she was taking the turn way too tight, and she just didn't see me at all and just took the turn really tight and ran into the passenger side
to
of
where
the
your car was. Right. Where did the accident happen? In the middle of the road, on the road she was on, or near the road you were on?
So I wasn't even out into the street of where she was on, is I guess 35th or whatever. I wasn't even out into the street.
So you weren't on 35th. You were just like an inching, and she cut it too close. So you say the accident was her fault. All right. Why didn't y'all call the police?
So we both got out of the car. We asked each other if we were okay and everything like that. He had mentioned to me that his girlfriend was going to kill him because this was the second time he had damaged her car. I let him know that I was in a previous accident where I was rear-ended and that car was totaled. So I just bought this car a little bit under a month and a half prior to this accident.
Okay, so if you don't call the police, what was everybody's plan? That you guys would do what? Did you get their insurance information that night?
So here's the thing is that night, what happened was the first thing he did was we asked each other if we're okay. He asked me if he could use my phone, which I thought was kind of weird because I don't know anybody who doesn't have a cell phone. Right. So while he was using my phone, I went back to my car, ripped off like a piece of paper. I wrote down my name, my phone number, and my address for him.
Did you give him your insurance information?
I believe so, yes. He didn't even give me his name.
And then
I had
Right.
no idea
Did you ask him for his name, since seeing as the accident was his fault and all?
Yes, I asked him for that and the insurance information, and because he said it was his girlfriend's car, he kind of acted like he didn't know where that information was, and I'm like, okay, well, can you look in the glove compartment? So he didn't really give me his information. I gave him my information, and he told me that he would basically have his girlfriend contact me because it was her car. Well,
if you think the accident is his fault and you're not getting any information at the scene, wouldn't it be the prudent thing to just say, let's just call the cops? Especially when you think that the accident's not your fault. If you think the accident's your fault, then don't call the cops. But if you think the accident is the other person's fault and the other person has zero information to give you, you may never see them again. So why would you not call the cops?
So it's 10:30 at night. I literally was 2 blocks away from my house. He told me he was heading home as well. I figured since I did the right thing and gave him my information and that I had...
Did he show you his license? Did he show you his license? So you have no idea who the guy is, where he lives? Did you take a picture of the tag of the car?
No. I pretty much all I had was... I know, it's horrible. Like I said, I just bought the car. I was really upset that even happened.
Yeah, that's all the more reason to call the police. Have don't let the guy leave without taking a picture of his license. Take a picture of the car with the tag. Because if you decide, let's just exchange information, we don't have to call the police. It's 10:30 and I'm tired, all right, or lazy, whichever the case may be. Then at least exchange information so that tomorrow, when you're fresh and perky, you can follow it up. But you had nothing. Well, what ends up happening? Ms. Mills, this is where you get involved. Do you end up calling her?
So he didn't have his phone because he just ran to the grocery store real quick, and sometimes you don't take your phone when you do that. And so he used her phone to call me, and he called me several times, but I was in the kitchen doing dishes and my phone was in a different room. So when he got home and busted in the door and said, "Why didn't you answer your phone?" I was like, "Oh my God, what happened?" He said, "This girl just hit me on the corner." Oh, you got some nerve.
Wait, Mr. Olivari came into the house and yelled at you for not answering your phone. The guy who had just gotten your car hit for the second time.
So I didn't yell at her. I was just frustrated because the reason why I was calling her so many times was because I couldn't find her information, her insurance information in the car and stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, you need to get down here. We could take pictures of this accident and all this stuff. I was trying to ask her what she wanted to do. You want to call the cops, yada, yada, yada. And so I was trying to call her, over and over again. And we just decided not to or whatever, just because we're neighbors, and, she was like, when it happened, she was all, sorry because it was her fault. She didn't see me. She thought these lights in the neighbor's yard were my headlights or whatever. So I was just like, listen, it's fine. I live right down the street. Whatever. I'll give you. I can't find the information, but here's.
So that's why when you were saying that you're neighbors, you didn't know each other before this, but it turns out you live very, very close. Okay.
Yeah,
and
really
in fact,
close.
Ms. Mills, when you finally talked to her, is it that night or is it the next day?
It was that night. I called her right away.
And what happened?
I said, "What happened?" She said, "Oh my God, I am so sorry." She said, "I saw your headlight or the headlights of the car, and I thought that the headlights were the lights on this house shining." And she said she just turned right into him and she didn't see him at all. She was like, "I'm so sorry, I didn't see him at all. It's 100% my fault. I promise I will take care of this." And I told her, this has happened before. The other person said the same thing and they didn't do that. I was like, "Do I have your word?" She said, "Yes, I promise I have your word." She was so sincere and so nice, and
So you got burned twice? Twice?
Unfortunately, yes. Yeah.
See,
unfortunately.
Why don't you just say to her, "Listen, I'd like to tape you so that we know that you're going to take care of this, and then we'll just figure it out, neighbor."
I should have, and I will next time.
Yeah.
I absolutely
Okay, so then
will.
what happens? You were so excited that what? What were you going to say?
To have a friend in the neighborhood, because she was so nice, and I was like, "Oh, cool! Now we know someone else in the neighborhood." Like, she seemed so convincing. I really didn't think it was a problem, and then I even told her in my first text message to her, "Hey, don't worry about the body damage. My car has other scratches on it. It's not a big deal. Like, I'll cover the body damage for you if you could just fix whatever is like the main problem, so that my car runs good again. I'll look past the the cosmetic part of it." That was my first message to her, and I was so nice. And then eventually she started seeming kind of like she was going to lie about it, or she wasn't sure what happened, or changing her story. So the next morning I went out.
Do you have any text from her where she admits fault?
No, I don't. And I actually, later in our messages where I was understanding that she was trying to flip her story, I was like, "Well, this is your fault, right?" And she never would actually say that it was her fault. But I did say...
Did you ever make a claim against her insurance company?
both of the insurance companies ended up getting involved, and they did an investigation, and they said that they couldn't determine what happened. So our insurance company paid for ours, and I assume hers paid for hers. And then we thought it was, I mean,
did your insurance company pay for the damage to your car, or you didn't have collision?
I had collision. My insurance, what happened was they deemed specific damage. So the mechanical damage, they deemed coincidental to the accident. But the thing about that is I bought the car a month before, and I had a mechanic thoroughly look at the car, and I even submitted that report as well on the car.
Well, you do have some strange things. Yeah, right. But you do have some strange things that you are adding on to the tab that you want them to pay, like a worn plate. You know, that stuff doesn't sound like it happened in an accident.
But
my question was well, that's between you and your insurance company. They didn't pay it. That doesn't magically make it their fault. You still have to, if you come into court and you've got this lawsuit against them, they counterclaimed against you for their damages. Each of you, to win your respective lawsuits, would have to prove to me that it happened in the way that you and only you are singing. It has to only have happened the way you're saying for each of you to win your lawsuits. Look, the bottom line is, you know, this is why it's really important to have good insurance, because accidents happen. Mercifully, nobody got hurt in this case. That's a good thing. But you took it upon yourself not only to not pay for their damages, but then to turn around and sue them, and now they're counterclaiming you for their damages, which they had already had covered by the insurance, so they figured, you know, no harm, no foul, I made a new friend, and then now they're suing you for the damage. That's pretty good. I gotta tell you, Ms. Mills, I'm impressed with your industry in going out there. You gotta up your game, Mr. Oliveri, okay? If you're gonna be with Ms. Mills, you cannot be running in there yelling at her, expecting her to try to produce the evidence in this case. Up your game, man. All right. But this is why you call the cops at night, you know, so that the cops can write down exactly what it is that everybody's saying, and people can't they don't have wiggle room to say something else later. So on your lawsuit against Mr. Oliveri, I am finding in Mr. Oliveri's favor. In Mr. Oliveri, Ms. Mills' lawsuit against you, I am finding in your favor. Neither of you, I believe, are able to prove by preponderance of the evidence that the accident is the other person's fault. There are no other witnesses to see it. That's my verdict. Good luck to all of you.
Neither party wins. They're both losers. So let's start with Ms. Toothman. You're the plaintiff. Ma'am, you were suing them for $3,200. You didn't get anything. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think the judge really looked at the positioning of the stop sign and where it was. I mean, had the plaintiff been where he was supposed to be behind the stop sign, it would have been impossible for me to hit him. But she didn't want to hear me, so.
Bottom line, you just didn't have enough evidence to support your story with her. That's really what it comes down to, unfortunately. And it's the same thing for the defendants. Mr. Oliveri and Ms. Mills, you lost your suit too. What do you think?
The bottom line is we don't really even care. It was over a year ago, a year and 4 months ago. This has been put in the past for a long time, so we're fine with that. We didn't really expect to get any money out of it, so we're just glad that it's all over, and we hope that we could still be good friends with Jessica and have a person that we know in the neighborhood.
Well, very good. I'm sure everybody watching learned something out of this as well. No question about it.
Marilyn, I don't often disagree with you. Certainly not in public, okay? I don't. Maybe privately once in a while. But on this one, I really thought that the defendants had presented enough evidence to carry the day by a little bit on the counterclaim, just because I thought Ms. Hill's testimony was pretty compelling. And she said, look, I talked to her on the phone. This is what she said. This is how she said it. And
that's why I think it's just so important to have the police there that night, documenting
that's
everything.
The real lesson here.
It freezes everything.
Not only that, you don't get in these little fender benders for that reason, because you want to have the police there and you want to make sure you don't get hurt on the liability side. But the other thing is, sometimes people come up with mysterious neck injuries or back injuries from an accident that looks really innocuous, where you're thinking, God, we're barely moving. And, you know, it's a tiny mark on somebody's bumper.
Just call the police and wait for the police. I mean, unless you have a warrant out for you, what would be the reason? What are you so busy doing that you can't wait?
Absolutely. And let them sort it out, and then nobody gets in trouble. And you certainly don't get in an accident and not get the name of the person who ran into you or who you ran into.
Especially if you think they're at fault. You don't even follow them home. You don't get the plate. You get nothing.
In my calculus, I credited that against the plaintiff as well in this case, because I'm thinking to myself, if you have one tiny little shred of doubt that it's not 100% your fault, you damn well drive away with the phone number, the name, rank, and serial number of whoever was the other party.
So Larry wants to know this. Hey, Harvey, when you loan a friend money, how much interest are you legally allowed to charge? In many states, the limit is 10%. After that, it's usury, and then you can't collect any. However, it can change from state to state. Go online, look at what your state limits you. It's different from credit cards. Look at what it limits personal loans, and that is your limit.